Well, hello there, everybody. It says that this is live, and I happen to believe it is because I can actually see it. So, welcome, everybody. How are y'all? Not quite noon yet, but hey, time is relative in a ongoing space, and that's where we are at. So, welcome, everyone. So good to see you. Hope you're having a great day in the neighborhood on this Saturn day, Wednesday. Yeah, it's all tied in, isn't it? Weird. Holiday week for many people. So if you're those people, hey, enjoy it, man. That's all I got to tell you. Dig it while you can. And let me see. I want to go over here. And there I am too. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Talking about y'all. And y'all are beautiful. Thank you for tuning in. It is a pleasure to meet here each day like this, kind of kick back and discuss, I don't know, what the reality. Okay. Yeah. That's a trip within itself, reality. But anyway, we're going to get into, well, it ties in with everything we've been studying here. You know, magic isn't spooky. You know, magic is just unknown science. As I say in the description, you know, science is outdated magic. So, yeah. And we're here doing some magic, no doubt about it. Welcome. Let's see, Loretta. Boy, the thing is going by quick. Gilbert, so you saw a UFO in Denver, I'm gathering. I got your text. It was just really been running. But wow, got to get you on and talk about that. Something's happening. I wrote down some notes here for the show, and I said, there is an agenda unfolding. It's a fact. Now, why is it happening? Why does it seem that apparently just a very few really know what's going on? And then it gets into this whole thing we'll be talking, is this our destiny? I mean, if our destiny came from these guys, you know, this guy here, because those two guys look a lot like that. Well, that's a goddess. Now, you can say that the figurine, in which is one of the oldest, maybe it was just a fluke, you know. Well, I don't know. I mean, we're a short-lived species, and something is definitely on. So, again, favor, baby. Be of service to others. These are things we can do regardless of whatever this matrix simulation, reality, whatever is doing. And it's doing something. And happy birthday if you got one, an anniversary. So, hey, chat room, what's up? Lucky, how are you doing? I'm giving dryer vent, so can't see the chat. I can dig that. Deborah, how are you, my dear? Scotty boy, always a pleasure. Eric, absolutely. Troy, hello. Jargo, Emperor Rex, how are you? Elderberry, what's up? Good to see you. John Price. And I know there were a lot others in there that, you know, if I missed your name, oh, see it. Hey, Brenda, how are you, Street Mom? Good to see you, my dear. Sean, what's up? Good to see you. Go. Jargo, I love that. Let's go. Wake me up before you go. Yeah. Anyway, Gaza, wow, early in the morning. Probably summertime there, isn't it? So I gather it gets light early. How are you, my friend? Speaking favor over you. So good to see you. Emerald Eagle, what's up? Let's see. Papa Lee, how are you doing? I love that. Greetings, y'all. I'm right there with you. Maximus. I don't know what that means. I guess that goes into a conversation. New Yoda, what's up? Good to see you. So this kind of going like, what the hell is happening here? You know, they say when the light exposes the darkness, truth is brought forth. You know, sanitation. Again, I contend, whose truth? I think that's the big thing that screws with us today. You don't believe anybody. Nobody. And, you know, it's like the cat in New York, the Republican, lied. Came out and admitted, yeah, I lied. Yeah, that ain't true. That ain't true. That ain't true. But hey, you can trust me. Why, sure we can. Yeah. It's just, it's freaking nuts. Michelle, how are you doing? Good to see you. John, Robin, hello. Bernadette, good to see you as well. Landon, good to see you. What's up? So, it's funny. You look at this and you go, seriously? Seriously? So we're going to be talking about something that, for those of you who've known about this, because I did stories back on it in 2015 and multiple stories going forward. So let's get right into this because, and just for full disclosure, I don't know if any of this is true. I don't know if this is all fantasy. I know that there is settings that these are what called exercises were conducted, and they don't hide it. I mean, the Gates Foundation, World Health Organization, the United Nations, many other countries that attended this symposium. This was yet another make-believe what-if scenario that was conducted using hypothetical scenarios. And that's so weird, though, is how those scenarios, those exercises, so-called, seem, they're either magic or we're in a simulation, because they do them and then boom, it happens. I mean, we're going to talk about event 205 or 201, excuse me. Both actually. And the first one already came to pass. So let's get right into this, folks. So for, again, full disclosure, I don't know if any of this is true. It all may be hypothetical. And if it's hypothetical, then it's open for debate. Well, actually, it's open for debate if it's actually real or the truth. But as we look at this from an intellectual perspective, dissecting it, that's how we learn. I mean, isn't that what school is? I mean, whether you're in, trigonometry or you're in advanced English, learning is a theater. And much what we learn is many times based upon a scenario, a class, a coming together of a group consciousness that when exposed to a scenario, a hypothetical or otherwise, it's amazing what happens to the group. And we all know this. This is what school is about. This channel is kind of like school. School's out forever. Lost in Space, what's up? Good to see you. Okay, Morning Star. Mary Wins, how are you, my love? Good to see you. Indeed. So, back in the day, there was a website, and as I pull it up, So I'm going to have to do it that way. Okay, so I get that. Okay. Give me 1 second. There we go. Now I can come over here and I can do this. So here we go. So this is from the website thevoid.uk, and this is starting to get a lot of play. Now, back in the day, and almost 8 years ago, when we were doing stories on this, people went, conspiracy shit. Actually, it's not. And by the way, we've never talked about it. I haven't seen it really on any type of social platform. The destruction of the Georgia Guidestones. Why did they not investigate that? They had 24-hour footage on it. Never one peep. There was a sign. It was a signal. So there was a website called Deagle. And let's just get into this because this will help clear up a lot. In 2014, a little-known military contractor called Deagle Corporation published a projection of massive global depopulation by 2025. We know that the desire for huge human depopulation is written in stone. A shady collective made sure of it when they commissioned the construction of the Georgia Guidestones in 1981. The first guideline on the 6-meter tall monument states, maintain humanity under 500 million, excuse me. I don't know, maybe that is the number, who knows? In perpetual balance with nature. Now, a little commentary here. My thesis is that that's why transhumanism is where it's at. It's advancing. The very, very wealthy, the gods that are walking, the goddesses in these meat suits, as pleasurable it is, it's got some real drawbacks, and that is they're rather fragile, fragile. And, quite frankly, we've got machines now that think faster than us. They think for us. So why don't we just go ahead and make the transformation complete? And as I said to you on Monday, that the advantage of having a cyborg body is the fact is you are more imbalanced with nature than any Homo sapien or any Homo neanderthalis, whatever you want to put us, have ever been. A cyborg body, again, would not consume any need for food of any kind, nor water, would have generally a long era for the maintenance to take place, but the maintenance would be pretty simple. You'd have an ever-expanding DNA hybrid type brain. It would actually be more of a storage capacity than anything else. And so if you look at cyborgization, excuse me, there's a lot to it. I mean, if you want to get green, that's as green as you can get. But let's continue on. Think about that. Completely in balance with nature, with this planet. And the other thing it would afford us, as I said as well on Monday, it would allow us the freedom to explore this universe. We can't do that now. But anyway, which makes things quite clear, demanding a 93.6% reduction of the human population. Now that's offensive to even think about. Every person, every living being has natural, universal rights. We just never follow them, do we? Let's see, especially over such a thing happening over a very short period of time. So with that in mind, this company, because once you're in the web, you're always on the web. There's no escaping the web. It's out there, unlike Las Vegas. Baby, it's out there. So they went back because the company has been acquired. I think Lockheed Martin acquired it, and they scrubbed the website. But again, so here's the backstory. Deagle came into focus in 2014 for their list of population reduction predictions in many countries on the planet, with very severe reductions in some countries. Ours. Archives indicate that the website started with no such forecast in 2007. By the 2010s, a forecast for 2025 predicted a reduction from 307 to 264 million in the U.S. As of March 2022, Deagle is still publishing articles about military technology. Their predictions about reduced populations have been removed. They've been scrubbed. Love the tea. Love the tea. Clothes. Wow, that is just a powerful stuff. Anyway, the Deagle Corporation is a minor branch of the U.S. military intelligence. The military industrial machine. One of many secretive organizations which collects data for high-level decision-making purposes and prepares confidential briefing documents for agencies like the National Security Agency, the UN, and the World Bank. Deagle is known, for example, to have contributed to the Stratford Report on North Korea. With this kind of pedigree, Deagle should be seen as a legitimate player in the intelligence community and not merely a disinformation asset. If so, then it must be assumed that its population predictions for 2025, as well as its industrial output production on a nation-by-nation basis, are based on strategic assumptions which are shared and well understood by other players in the intelligence community. So, this is what we're talking about. Back in the day when Brian Barnett, Milky Way, I looked in the archives and they're still there. So we knew, 5 years ago, a little bit longer, that if you say that, all right, so these are based on assumptions, hypotheticals, the data has to have a data set in which the predictions are being based upon. And this is apparently a company that's very much involved in intelligence gathering. And that's what intelligence gathering agencies and companies do. They gather data. And they were obviously making payroll. So someone spent a long time going through each country of this. Here's Germany. And you can see that, for instance, when we talk about, let's go back up at the heading, you have the currency, the gross domestic product. You can see the growth trends, France. So, and I think I can do this. I hope it goes that way. So here's another one. This is a website called knowbulart.com. Now, this is an interactive map. And according to this model, we can see what countries are going to experience growth. For instance, right here in the Sudan, they have a positive increase in their overall net population of 16.8%. You go over here in Mongolia, 7.2%. Madagascar, 10% increase in their local population. And which is, and over here in South America, Bolivia, 7.6, Paraguay, 9.3. This is all indicative that, Well, either they're having it through natural population with, their breeding, dying versus being new births, or there is an influx of people coming in. Subsequently, we can see in Russia, virtually no change at all. China, minor, 1.6, but there, due to the lack of a healthy male sperm, which all industrialized nation males are suffering from, this is not that bad. But now let's get over here. So in Canada sees a net reduction of population by 2025 of 26.1%. We get down here into the United States, and the number is, well, you can see it almost max out the chart. I mean, you're talking, let's just round it up, a 70% reduction. Excuse me. Oh, by the way, Australia, 35%. So again, we'll get into some of these numbers a little bit more, but this is the disturbing part of this. And I'll stop this share on that. And let me get rid of that one. Let me get rid of that one. And here we are back. Okay. It's so good to be back. So we've talked about this. We have speculated, pontificated, debated, and, and I can tell you back 2016, 17, 18, no one thought about a contagion. I mean, at least not in the scale that we've seen as a result of COVID. And so now people are going, well, could it be that? Okay, so this is where it starts getting weird. Let me pull this up. People go, weird? Yeah, it's weird, all right. So we talked about these numbers here. And again, you can see here, population 217, 2025, GDP. So this is a complex algorithm. I mean, to build a database with this much input and variables, it's no cheap thing. It's rather expensive. Millions of dollars, if not tens of millions of dollars. So, and someone's paying for this. Yeah, they said who's paying for this. The U.S. military, United Nations, other countries. Why not? If that was what you were tasked with, was to project out and see in the crystal ball, and this is what this is, what is the crystal ball saying to you? Well, for the most part, it shows that the world, except for some cases like here, Australia, we talked about, well, that's a huge reduction. I mean, you're going from 23 million to 15 million. But then again, and the Bahamas, isn't this an interesting? Austria, look at that, a 29% reduction. Bahrain, nearly 40%. I mean, these type of cullings, and this is the only thing you can say, because as you see in here, and it is interesting if you do the analysis of what countries are seeing growth and what's seeing huge reduction. Every person, we've talked about this, when you are born, you're given a birth certificate. It's all in capitalization of your name. Why? Because that's how the world system works. It works on the trading of people. People have worth. The new social scoring come in is a model of that, but unfortunately, it's perverse in my opinion, but that's just me. So anyway, this is clearly indicating something is afoot here. The thing about Deagle back in the day, they never made any statement as to why. It wasn't their job. This model apparently is not a model as prediction as what was the cause. Merely we're seeing something that is going through. Look at Ireland. 72.4%. Look at the change in the GDP. Nearly 90%. Folks, if your country suffers a collapse where your GDP collapses to 90%, it's just gone. You got some real issues that you're going to need to work out. I mean, serious issues. Israel is another one who really takes it on the chin. I mean, something is going on here. And again, follow the numbers and you can begin to see, well, what could be causing this? What would happen in the world? Well, now, all of us, it's no secret out there. This is most likely a viral contagion of some kind. And it's still interesting to me that you see how this played out on the global map. It seems to be selective. It's the only word you can come up with. Now look at here. This is what I mean. So you have Mexico. Mexico sees a 5% increase in their population. But it's interesting because taking on the numbers again, their GDP, there should be a correlation. So it's showing that something is sucking the resources out of Mexico, being allocated to something that apparently is global in nature. Again, I love numbers, run a number of technology companies. And, particularly if you were running an internet company, your databases were everything. Your databases have value, extreme value. And the more you can data mine, the more valuable it becomes. So some room in the Pentagon with no windows, I'm sure that there have been numerous classes, or how shall we say, conferences on discussing, because come on, folks, we're not the only ones. I mean, like any of us have that type of access to the information. But the interesting thing was they put it out there on the web for years, never, updated it, but never took it down until recently. Again, look at Norway. I mean, folks, if you're losing 25% of your population, let's just all just close our eyes and picture this. 25%. So let's say that you live in an apartment complex. Each unit in this apartment complex has, let's just say, for 10 units. Each unit, we will give a value of 2. So in the morning, you are going to have, in that case, and this is what gets spooky, 5 people are gone. Maybe more. I mean, if you live in a region where you're up near 80%, that means only 2 out of 10 are going to be alive. I mean, that's a science fiction. That's HBO, Netflix. I mean, that's horror. But something's happening here. And if you're like me, you look at these numbers and you're going, well, what's happening here? We look at different regions of the planet, and it's not making any sense. But we're seeing in like Spain, nearly 41.5%. That's nearly a 60% reduction in GDP. Your country is going to be in a depression because you're not going to have enough people to fill in the critical jobs. I mean, we're talking complete infrastructure collapses here in some cases, just if you go by the numbers. And again, you're asking yourself, well, so what do they have planned? Look at the Ukraine. I found that interesting. So here's the United States. The GDP is collapsed, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just round this up, 85.5%. Wow. No country can survive that. The infrastructure collapse of this kind of number, if it ever came to pass, we're no longer a country. We are decimated as a nation. We won't have a military to speak of. Not enough. I mean, you're seeing the absence of over 200 million people. And I want to thank James for showing me there is the website, and here's the next one. It'll be along this line. SEERS, which stands for Severe Epidemic Intravirus Respiratory Syndrome 2025. So they just did this exercise. As you can see, you can get this from the CDC, and I think it's on a number of other websites. So this is the futuristic scenario for the public health risk communicators. So in this scenario, isn't it odd that we're seeing numbers that reflect the Deagle numbers? And this was conducted by Johns Hopkins Center for Health and Security. It gives you exactly what the scenario is. And let's just take a peek at this. So, because I was once told in my Bible teaching in a class, I have been told subsequently in the occult as well, if there's a shitstorm coming down on humanity that's going to cost souls, nothing happens in the physical unless it's already taken place in the spiritual, or what we would call the ethereal. So something is afoot here, but let's read what the purpose of this scenario that was done in October. Gives you the project team members who was all on this. Again, Bill Gates was involved with this, the Gates Foundation. So this, again, the disclaimer is that this is a hypothetical scenario designed to illustrate the public health risks, communication challenges that could potentially emerge during a naturally occurring infectious disease outbreak requiring development and distribution of novel or investigational drugs, vaccines, therapeutics, and other medical countermeasures. The infection pathogen, medical countermeasures, characters, news media experts, social media posts, and government agency responses here described herein are entirely fictional. The what if scenario. So what are we dealing with here? This is the possible future in the year 2025 called the echo chamber. Unbridled global access to information coupled with social fragmentation and self-affirming worldviews. I mean, that's a mouthful. All right, so it's a scenario purpose. Folks, you need to pay attention to this. They ran this scenario. They did the same thing in 2017. Agenda 205, I believe, 201, excuse me. And they even called the novel virus the coronavirus. Said the scenario purpose, the following narrative comprises a futuristic scenario that illustrates communication dilemmas concerning medical countermeasures, MCMs, that could plausibly emerge in the not-so-distant future. Its purpose is to prompt users, both individually and in discussion with others, to imagine the dynamic and oftentimes conflicted circumstances in which communication around emergency medical countermeasures are developed, distribution, and uptake takes place. While engaged with a rigorous simulated health emergency, scenario readers have the opportunity to mentally rehearse responses while also weighing the implications of their actions. At the same time, readers have a chance to consider what potential measures implemented in today's environment might avert comparable communication dilemmas or classes of dilemmas in the future. What we did learn about COVID, we weren't prepared. It showed very clearly that we didn't know how to respond to it. I mean, in World War I was the chemical wars. We know from those wars, from when they would bring in the dead bodies, exactly what mustard gas would do you, chlorine gas. I mean, it provided a bonanza for weapon manufacturing. And they just realized that it's number one, cumbersome, and it's not a good way to go. So now that we know that contagions can jump species, we've known that for, influenza, that's how it happens, has kicked our butt as a species. So they're obviously talking about some sort of virus. Reminds me of the numerous movies they came out with. What was the one? Contagion. And then you had, what was the one with Dustin Hoffman? Anyway. All right. So here is this perspective scenario was developed through a combination of inductive and deductive approaches delineated by Equivally-Schwartz. If you don't know who they are, you should check them out. The time frame for this scenario is in the years 2025 to 2028. Was selected, and then major social, economic, demographic, technological, environmental trends likely to have emerged by that period were identified. So Equivally-Schwartz did this think tank. I was involved with a couple of think tanks with the Federal Reserve. We went through these scenarios. That was back in 2012, 2013. Yeah, anyway. Varying degrees of access to information and technology, and two, varying levels of fragmentation among populations along social, political, religious, ideological, and cultural lines. A scenario matrix was then constructed, illustrating 4 possible worlds shaped by these trends, with consideration given to both constant and unpredictable situations, driving forces. Ultimately, a world comprised of isolated and highly fragmented communities with widespread access to information technology, dubbed the echo chamber, was selected as the future in which the prospective scenario would take place. From this point, scenario-specific storylines were then developed, drawing on subject matter experts, historical accounts of past medical countermeasures, crises, contemporary media reports, and scholarly literature in sociology, emergency preparedness, health education, risk, and crisis communication. These sources were used to identify communication challenges likely to emerge in future public health emergencies. And I'll just say this, I have a book that I started writing on this thing back in, I don't know, 2001. And if anybody wants, I can actually, in fact, I'll do it. In my scenario, the book was called The Start. In my scenario that I made up in 2001 was that there was a terrorist group who had gotten the DNA sample from the Spanish flu of 1919 through 1921. They were able to revive that virus and extract from it not only the DNA, but the RNA. They then wrapped that on the RNA of another living organism, in this case, dust or similar type of product. And then merely by flying inconspicuously, you could let go a dust factory that would not be detectable. But on it would it be carrying this new modified genetically influenza H5N5, I believe, or something close to that. Yeah. And in my book, I went through all the scenarios at that time of what would take place through FEMA, the recent advent of the internet. And yeah, it was pretty interesting. The bottom line was it didn't turn out well for us. It kicked our ass. And, you know, that's the fear. Smallpox. And now they say that there are vials of that highly deadly contagious disease that ravished us all one time, potentially out there. And if you can imagine modifying any of these. So it says this perspective scenario is not intended to predict events to come. Rather, it is meant to serve as a plausible narrative that illustrates a broad range of serious and frequently encountered challenges in the realm of risk and crisis communication. So I'm going to go just a little bit in this because I want to show you the other document that this document was predicated upon. All right, so in the year 2025, just 2 short years away, the world has become simultaneously more connected, yet more divided. Nearly universal access to wireless internet and new technology, including internet accessing technology, IAT, thin, flexible screens that can be temporarily attached to briefcases, backpacks, or clothing and used to stream content from the internet. Talk about being plugged in, baby. They said this has provided the means for readily sharing news and information. It's also if you have a bad social score. Can you imagine this thing? However, many have chosen to self-restrict the sources they turn to for information, often electing to interact only with those whom they agree with. This trend has increasingly isolated cliques from one another, making communication across and between these groups more and more difficult. From a government standpoint, the current administration is led by President Randall Archer, who took office in January 2025. Archer served as vice president under President Jacqueline Bennett, 2020 to 2024, who did not seek a second term due to health concerns. Yeah, many of us are seeing this one, huh? The two remain close, and Bennett acts as a close confidant and unofficial advisor to President Archer. The majority of President Archer's senior staff, including Department of Health Human Services Secretary Dr. Sindra Nagel, are carryovers from Bennett's administration. At the same time of the initial SPARS, and that's what it's called, the SPARS outbreak, Nagel has served in this position for just over 3 years. In regard to mass communication countermeasures, medical countermeasures, communications, more specifically, the United States Department of HSS, the Centers for CD and Control Intervention, CDC, and the FDA, and other public health agencies have increasingly adopted a diverse range of social media technologies, including long-existing platforms such as Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, etc., as well as emerging platforms like ZapQ, a platform that enables users to aggregate and archive selected media content from other platforms and communicate with cloud-based social groups based on common interest in current events. This is a clue for if there's some entrepreneurs that are technically minded, listen what they did here. This is incredible. Federal and state public health organizations also have developed agency-specific applications and ramped up efforts to maintain and update agency websites. Challenging their technological grip, however, are the diversity of new information and the media platforms and the speed with which the social media community evolves. Moreover, while technologically savvy and capable, these agencies still lag in terms of their multilingual skills, cultural competence, and ability to be present in all forms of social media. Additionally, these agencies face considerable budget constraints, which further complicate their efforts to expand their presence across the aforementioned platforms, increase social media literacy among their communication workforces, and improve public uptake of key messages. What it's saying in the bottom line of this thing is that most humans can't handle it. I mean, there's only so much data. And I'll say this not to be discriminatory of any demographic group, but the older you get, the more this becomes a challenge. There's many even in my generation that this is to come in here and be a YouTuber. It's beyond the pale of their imagination. They just can't see it. You know, I can't get used to, I can't do the technology. Yeah, you can. You know, so I want to get down to what happens here. So here is what happens. So this is the SPARS Outbreaks Begins, Chapter 1. This is the St. Paul Chronicle. Third death in a week due to unknown illness in Twin Cities. In mid-October 2025, 3 deaths were reported among members of the First Baptist Church of St. Paul, Minnesota. Now remember, this is all hypothetical, made up. 2 of the church members had recently returned from a missionary trip to the Philippines, where they provided relief to victims of regional floods. The third was the mother of a church member who had also traveled to the Philippines with a church group, but who had been only mildly sick himself. Based on the patient's reported symptoms, healthcare providers initially guessed that they had died from seasonal influenza, which health officials predicted would be particularly virulent and widespread that fall. However, laboratory tests were negative for influenza. Unable to identify the causative agent, officials at the Minnesota Department of Health and Public Health Laboratories sent the patient's clinical specimens to the CDC, where scientists confirmed that the patients did not have influenza. One CDC scientist recalled reading a recent ProMed dispatch describing the emergence of a novel coronavirus in Southeast Asia and ran a pan-coronavirus PCR test. A week later, the CDC team confirmed that the 3 patients were, in fact, infected with a novel coronavirus, which was dubbed the St. Paul Acute Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus, or what we would call SPARS COVID, or the SPARS. after the city where the first cluster of cases had been identified. The CDC monitored the situation closely, working with partners in the Southeast Asia to quickly develop a case definition for SPARS. Within 4 weeks of CDC publishing a working case definition on its website, nearly 200 suspected cases of SPARS were reported across Minnesota and in 6 other states. Given that the flu season was just getting underway and that a rapid diagnostic test for the SARS-CoV infection was not yet available. CDC official, does this sound familiar, folks? Yeah, this is like reliving something we all did. CDC officials could not be sure if these were, in fact, true cases of SPARS. Nevertheless, on November 17, 2005, HHS Secretary Dr. Sindra Nagel notified the WHO about the U.S. cluster of SPARS cases. Concern with the outbreak might constitute a public health emergency of international concern, what they call FEIC. As transmission of SPARS was determined to occur via droplet spread, the CDC initially recommended that everyone diligently maintain hand hygiene and frequently disinfect potential contaminated surfaces. So do that anyway, right? CDC officials further urged anyone with severe flu-like symptoms to seek immediate medical attention. Public health officials were concerned that the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday and Black Friday shopping activities would facilitate the spread of SPARS, that they remain confident that the awareness and prevention messages disseminated annually for seasonal influenza, combined with isolation procedures for suspected cases, would be effective at countering the spread of SPARS. These messages were spread via a variety of traditional and social media sources, including Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, and ZapQ. So we now have a scenario where something's obviously happened. We've seen movies doing the same thing. Outbreak, that was the movie I was thinking with Dustin Hoffman and Rene Russo. Anyway, same scenario. So, and being conscious of my time here. So if this is true, then what's happening here? This is, by the way, the update. I can get into the rest of the scenario and still might tomorrow's show, who knows. But this is interesting. So December 12th, 2022 at 6:49 a.m., the World Health Organization, Johns Hopkins, Bill Gates just conducted another pandemic simulation. This time, the virus is deadlier and targets children. So they did this again. It says Mr. Gates was in attendance. They run these scenarios, as I have found in researching this, much more frequently than they used to. I mean, COVID changed in everything. I mean, you know, and we all know that. Look what it's done to us, and look at what it's done to the world. But they're basing this now on a second wave, a catastrophic contagion. Now, this exercise is to simulate a global pandemic that is deadlier than the coronavirus, especially dangerous to children. And I want to play a video which is out there, so there's no copyright infringement on this. You can actually go over onto the YouTube channel and see this for yourself. So allow me to pull this up. Give me 1 second, folks. Okay. Let's see. All right. I got that. Let me come over to here. Hi. So let me share the screen on this one. So not sure if you're going to be able to hear that. That's the other thing, I guess, is the problem here.
Noted the WHO of several outbreaks of a new infectious disease that's mysteriously appearing across the region with severe epidemic enterovirus respiratory syndrome.
So these are the commercials. This is a fake newscast.
There have been 500.
And I'll leave the link in here. You can find it on YouTube as well.
The virus could cause a severe pandemic if early containment and mitigation efforts are not successful.
The pandemic in this type of situation and trend would be a risk for the global health security.
Pandemics are inherently political, financial, and so much broader.
So I don't know if we're hearing this good, and I certainly won't take. Like I said, you can easily find this as well, and I'll leave the link as well. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier as well, before we get out. So you know that this is not just a bunch of. So this was the agenda 201, a global pandemic exercise. Again, they've run this. This one was on SARS. And again, this is actually for the Center for Health Security.org. So again, if we looked at this, and let me get back to over here. There we go. So I want to finally go back to where we started on this, and let's go back over here. So again, what was Deagle doing? My question is, I also wonder as well, did we see, I mean, is there a cross, well, I would say a cross contamination, because these numbers were way out ahead of much of this. And so we saw in that scenario 2 years away. Well, actually, it would be actually 2.5 years, it'd be 30 months away. And I can tell you just from, you know, my basic economic classes that this, the United States would not be able to survive. So allow me to get out of here again. So there we go. I don't know what this actually means. I don't know what the implications are. I don't know, again, if we're just seeing two hypothetical scenarios that just so happened to have crossbreeding of data, one reflecting the other, but one that preceded the other. So who is borrowing from who? And again, if this is hypothetical, then I find it interesting that you would have these other agencies who probably really wouldn't have anything to do with a company like Deagle. At least I don't think so. So you have these health organizations and what have you using data that came from what was the purpose of Deagle's. I mean, again, did they pass this around at like the UN? And all of a sudden, the diplomats are looking at this, go, excuse me, I got to go make a phone call. And so now you have world leaders that are looking at this. Now, this is just me, but if I was an enemy of a country that I saw in a hypothetical situation, merely hypothetical, it's a training exercise, but yet they're showing me a set of data sets that are saying, are you serious? This is what they're projecting for their losses? I mean, again, whew. So hasn't this been exciting? Make sure you hit the like button. Let me know, right? It's a freaky scenario. And if you want the documents, I have them in PDF. You can find them out there. You know, it only took me about 30 minutes, and all of a sudden I had the data that everyone in these other places are talking about, and it's going around everywhere. I'm thankful for you got companies that, you know, do the archives on the web that were able to pull those screenshots from Deagle, because otherwise this would be simply hearsay. No, it's not hearsay. But again, I don't know. Then that question comes back again. So if there is, I mean, think about this from a religious, a spiritual point. If this is even a possible future, I mean, we make it much more real as we speak it more often. And I'm thinking to myself, truly, there are not human beings that would do this to other human beings. Apparently, yes. The answer is, and that's disturbing. If there are UFOs, if there are aliens that have been able, I can't understand how an alien could actually circumvent space in just the distances, unless they've figured the wormholes out. But my point is, I mean, are they of such a malevolent mindset? I mean, is the prime directive with them as well? I don't know. And then it disturbs me as a person living in the United States that it looks like my country is going to get its ass kicked. I don't like that scenario at all. I like where I grew up. I like this country. It's for all of its ills and woes and what have you. It's the only country I know of. All right. This is serious stuff. And this is why, folks, I teach the occult. Because if religion worked, it would give us an answer other than the one that, if you go by the book of Revelation, all of these pandemic scenarios are right in the book of Revelation. And if that is the best religion can do for us, because remember, in the book of Revelation, it says 3 to 5 billion people will perish in this end time. And then you got the Georgia Guidestone saying, 500 million, that's top. Wow. We got to do better for this. And if all this is just bullshit, if there are no other life after this, if there is no energies, which we would call angels, demons, I mean, even the fact that the demons would exist would give you some hope. Then it's all bullshit. It's all make-believe. Because if this is our fate and our destiny as a species, I mean, if there's a future that they look back on us, they're going to look at Homo sapiens as nothing more as a shit stain on the short period of time we were on this planet. And why we would even do something. Anyway, now that you feel really good, so we'll continue to teach and we'll continue to experiment. Hey, listen, I kind of look at it like this. Occult just means knowledge that is not known. Well, from this scenario, I want to know as much knowledge as I can that would definitely be of some beneficial, fortuitous, advantageous position. That's all I got to say. And Scotty boy, I'm right there with you. Yeah, Brian, we could talk about that, brother. We could seriously talk about that, because it's like, wow. I just cannot accept, if we can make enough humans aware of this, and if we could ever come together, the old idiom, a house divided against itself can't stand. It's the same thing with a marriage, a family, a community. If there's division, no ability to compromise, I mean, wow. Talk about the dualistic concept. Sheesh. All right. Much love to you people. Thank you for tuning in, and let me know what your thoughts are. If any of you want these PDFs, you can have them. You can read the scenario. It gets interesting. And I think we all know from what we've experienced already that that could get ugly real quick. I mean, ugly. I mean, this is kind of the thing that you're almost thinking about the Omega Man, Charleston Heston. If you are too young and you don't remember that movie, go check it out. It's even on YouTube. And what was that scenario? There was a viral contagion. And the character that Charleston Heston played, he was injected with a possible countermeasure. And then you had Matthias, who was, when you go to the dark side, this is what the virus did. Anyway, folks, we can do this. We can do better than this. We can do better than this. Man, I mean, the musicians of the world, those of you who make music, stop doing the bucks. I mean, it's like the Eagles. That band never stops. How much money is not enough money anymore? But why can't we get back to the thing, with Michael Jackson, we love the world, yeah. Yeah, gotta show a little bit of love, folks. All right, I've gone way over. Thank you. Much love to y'all. Thank y'all for stopping by. See you tomorrow. I hope you've had fun. All right, until then.